Mr. Emerald.
I want to address the tier tax rate. Mr. Welch said it's for non-residents, but that's not true. The increase that they approved, 6 council members, increased taxes on renters. A non-resident is a renter in this policy is a non-resident. Landlords were burdened with this tax increase. The bills went out, taxes went up, they raised their rents, driving families out of Middletown. It was a mistake, and then most recently, they came back and tried to give a long-term rental exemption with the lease. It was a mistake. It is part of the question. It's taxation, and taxes are going up, and it's a shell game. They keep moving the tax burden around, and taxes will go up, and we need to follow the advice of RIPEC, the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council, and listen to them, listen to the facts, the research, and the data on taxation, and not wing it.
Thank you. Ms. Von Villas. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
The first 3 years of loan payments for the school bond is interest only. The loan payments will then go up. Taxes will have to go up to pay the increased loan payments due. How will you prevent residents being forced to sell?
I would like to echo what the gentleman down the end have said in regard to their faith in the administration. I believe that both Sean and Mark are they're unquestionable integrity, and they certainly care about what happens in the town. So I have faith that they will recommend actions that will be most fortuitous for all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez?
Okay, so I think the timing of the first bond, as I stated earlier, we saved $800,000 on interest alone. The first year. We need to pay very close attention to the timing of that second bond, as Councilor Logan said, and Mark does a good job of doing that. And that's what and that all goes back to the decisions of the previous councils, including this one. They make solid decisions, working together, pulling the rope all from the same end. Having said that, as they've alluded to, 321,000 fall off the police station in 28. 291,000 falls off the police station in 29, be completely paid for. We have $1.4 million in the PPV fund at that point in time. Between that and the negotiations with West Main Road, it's going to give us a very favorable dollar figure to put towards the school funding, which is going to surprise some people. And we continue to talk to Newport to see if we can get regionalization for better education for our kids and an 83% reimbursement, and maybe this bond might cost the taxpayers next to nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Toronto.
Thank you. And I've also talked with Paul about continuing the conversations for regionalization with Newport. As soon as they declined or they voted it down, when Middletown voted for it, I said, Paul, let's go back, because that was the right decision. That would have gotten us 85% reimbursement from the state, so it would have been spread out over the whole state. And there's other areas in the state that are getting over 100% reimbursement. So I'm not sure why they decided not to do it. I've heard different reasons why they didn't want to partner, but we need to look at this. I've heard this bonds are expiring for fire and police, and I've heard it being used for multiple reasons. So let's keep in mind what we're using this for, okay? And with the reallocation of the tax burden that our system currently does, there are over 1,400 people's taxes that are going down this year. So according to me, they're not paying anything towards the bond. We need to spread this bond out over the people. Maybe what we do is we take the number of residents and divide the payment amongst the residents, and everyone pays the same amount.
Mr. Viveras.
Here's the problem I have. They talk about bonds that are coming due, okay? When we go off of bonds and the tax rate is increased or whatever to pay the cost of the bond, when the bond is paid, that increase is still in the tax rate, okay? So the people are still paying for those bonds. With the school bond, I suggested that in the legislation that it's included that the year after the bond is paid, that tax rate is dropped by that amount of money. And Councilor Rodriguez mentioned, asked Sean about it, and he said, well, the year that the bond is paid, the next year, we don't budget for it. But the taxpayers are still paying for it because that rate increase is still in the rate. So what I suggested was if you gotta raise the rate 4% when a bond is paid, if you need a 3% increase in taxes, you only raise it 1%.
Thank you. Okay, and now we're gonna move on to the last question, starting with Mr. Connerton. Is school regionalization really dead? Why? High schools could still be joined. One could be more liberal arts, college-based, and one more technical and trade-based.
I do not think the regionalization talks are done. I agree, what you suggested can happen. I do not know to the depth of those conversations what's happening, but I do know that the president does talk to Mayor's Eye. They have monthly meetings to discuss our issues, their issues, not just regionalization, but I would say no, it's not dead at all, and I think it could still happen, and I think it could benefit both communities greatly.
Thank you, Mr. Logan.
I think it's up to the voters. And I think a program has to be presented to the voters that's palatable for each community. I think that's how regionalization gets talked about again. You know, if I had a magic wand, I would love to see a regional career technical education school. I think it's an opportunity lost for both of our communities to have that. Not every child is ready to go to college, and we shouldn't be forcing them to go to college. We have a gross shortage. I didn't want to get my soapbox about this, I apologize. Plumbers, electricians, HVAC, green energy, come on. We have an opportunity lost right now. This should be on the ballot. It should be on the ballot right now. We should be thinking about a regional career technical education school. Use the new schools that we have to facilitate those college preparatory and put those other folks down where they can get that real world training and add value immediately upon graduation to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Frank.
I think regionalization is a good thing, necessary, and the town should pursue it vigorously.
Thank you, Mr. Amaron.
I'll echo that sentiment. I'm a fan of regionalization, and I think it would benefit the island.
Ms. Von Villis.
I've been an administrator in actually three regional districts in 3 different states, and I can tell you that there's probably nothing that I support more than regionalization and have all along. I definitely support the idea of a career and technical school. I think I'm afraid that what's happening in Newport is that they're cutting back their programs as a result of that. I'm very hopeful that something will happen. I don't want to talk about specifics, but something will happen out there that will allow us to join together and work towards providing the students all the types of education that we need so that we can support what takes place on the island with our own people.
Mr. Rodriguez.
I can't speak for all the voters, but I will say I think there's a strong possibility. It's still alive. We have until Rogers' project is complete to be able to make it happen, which is next year in September. So if it was to happen, we'd have to move on it, and we'd have to have a special election to be able to do that. Last time this happened, the biggest answer we couldn't give to people was, what are the educational opportunities? I think there needs to be an educational study that says, hey, these are the opportunities for our kids. I think we know them, but people want to see that. The financial numbers, it's a no-brainer. 83% it would solve. People are going to vote with their wallets. With all the financial pressures going on, that's what's, in my opinion, that's what's going to happen. That's what makes sense. That's what makes sense for both communities. Our demographics are very similar, and I think it's the right thing to do. And Chris is spot on about the regional technical school. My kid does it. He's going to New England Tech in his senior year of high school from what he's done down there. So a lot of kids have a lot of opportunities they're not exploiting.
Thank you. Mr. Toronto.
Thank you. Career Tech, the big blue wave we call it, is something that we've been missing for a number of years, and it's an opportunity for us to create in Middletown. Our new building is actually going to facilitate more Career Tech. We have 3 career techs currently in Middletown, so more information to follow on that. I'm a big believer in regards to the education within the school. I was responsible for facilitating and encouraging the Beyond the Bell program, which is an after-school education program, which is being offered. You may have heard of this program. We are getting quite a number of kudos for it. It actually now is running parallel with the governor's program, Learn 365. We've actually received over $400,000 in funds to keep this program supported, and the council has supported this. And we have dozens of children. Think about this. COVID had a big impact. Our kids were not thriving prior to COVID. Then COVID hit. So I didn't think we needed to do a
Thank
study,
you.
but we did. But over 25 children over the last
Thank
couple of
you.
years have graduated from Middletown because of the program. So put the education in the
Viveras?
school.
Mr. Viveras.
There might be a problem with regionalization is the state law. Right now, if the school committee comes to the council and says we need a 5% increase, the council could say, well, we can't give you a 5% increase, we'll give you a 4. In a regional school district, they have to give it to them. Okay, that's my first thing. And in 2005, I was a committee put together by the school department to look at all our buildings and what we have to do to fix them up, to bring them up to par. And the recommendation from the committee was, number one, you hire a consultant to put together the best curriculum in the country. And then you hire a consultant to look at our schools and see what we have to do to implement the curriculum, even if it means building a new school. And after 2 years, what we got was a proposal for $123 million new school complex. That's the problem.
Mr. Welch.
Thank you. I think we've heard all sorts of great ideas on why regionalization would be a good idea, but to answer your question, Aaron, I think it is still alive because we're talking about it.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask you to hold on to the microphone. It's now time for closing statements. You will each have an opportunity for 90 seconds. We'll put up the yellow flag for you at 60 seconds, and you'll have 30 seconds remaining. And we're going just to go backwards for the end of the evening. So starting with you, Mr. Welch. Sure. And now we will go to Mr. Welch for your closing statement.
Okay, thank you. I think all I have to say is this. I am not a data guy. I do not understand every line on the budget. What I do is logically look at a question that's before us. I came into this different than I am today. I understand a lot more that goes into all the decisions that we have to make, and one of the things I certainly understand is that there are many facets to every problem. And I think that I will give you that. I'm a Middletowner. I've always been here. That's what I care about, and that's why I'm up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Viveras.
Thank you. I think one of the problems is the lack of interest by a lot of the people themselves, the voters. We had a $190 million bond for new school complex. The outcome was very disappointing. Only 1/3 of the registered voters voted. So 2/3 stayed home. people have to get engaged, people have to pay attention to what's going on, and they have to take part in the whole process. Because an awful lot of men and women, military people, you know, died to give us the right to vote. And when you don't vote, as far as I see it, you discredit their memory. So the people have to get out, pay attention to what's going on. Because all of a sudden, things go on, $90 million bond, then all of a sudden, the taxes go up and people are yelling and screaming. Well, they should have been paying attention at the beginning.
Thank you. Mr. Toronto?
Thank you, and I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and listening to why we're up here, and why we want to run and represent Middletown. I did make a comment earlier, and I just want to be clear on it. When I was talking about security, I said illegal immigrants. If you're a legal immigrant, my grandfather was considered an immigrant, okay? I'm not saying anything, I'm said illegal immigrants. So I just want to clarify that there is a way to come into this country and that people should come into this country that way. That's just my concern on a national level. It keeps me up at night. We need to think about this. You need to come out and vote. There's national issues, and it does affect Middletown. When I got into this, I thought, little Middletown. Someone said, you should go to Washington, D.C. No, I'm not going to D.C. You should go to the State House. No, I'm not going to the State House. I'm just going to help try to fix and give back to the community, since the community's been good to my family. And I found out that Little Rhodey is it's affected by what's happening at Washington, D.C. The decisions they make at that level affect us in Middletown. We need to get out, we need to vote, and Middletown is a great place to live. We do have a great community, excited about it. We have a lot of good things going on, but I'm for term limits. If you want to have the right to vote for term limits, vote me in and any other candidates who support term limits, because they wanted to put term limits on this ballot, and the council
Thank
did
you,
not
sir.
allow you to vote for it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Aaron. Time and issues have become more complicated as Middletown grows. Middletown's not as simple as you think it is, or it has been in the past. A lot of big projects going on. I think that cohesion amongst council members and school committee is critical to the success of Middletown, whether we agree, whether we respectfully disagree. We need to work past that and continue on. We need to make sure that we're pulling the rope from the same end. I'm completely dedicated to making sure that we do that. That we develop affordable housing, that the school bond's on time and on budget. We continue to take care of residents and continue to try to make Middletown the best place to live, work, and play. I've been extremely fortunate to have been elected and re-elected over time. I'm dedicated to serving you faithfully, honestly, and transparently. My passion for Middletown I will always do what's best for Middletown today. We're not just making decisions for today, we're making decisions for tomorrow, we're making decisions for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. That's our job. And some of those decisions aren't popular, but we have to do what's best for Middletown as a whole, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Thank you. Ms. Von Villis?
Yes, let's use common sense. We need to apply the big picture perspective to every issue. Good management requires planning and keeping goals in mind. Middletown's well-being should be the priority. We need to come together as a community and choose what is best for the whole town. It's time for some creative thinking. We need more senior housing and more starter homes so our kids can afford to live here. What to do? We can continue to develop existing properties. We can explore possibilities for buildings with multiple units, such as co-op apartments, and we can ensure a healthy balance between permanent residences and rentals. Tax assessment should be fair and reasonable. The fairest classification system recognizes the difference between residential property versus income-generated property and assesses taxes proportionately. We need to focus on Middletown as a community. If we want to thrive, we have to work together, not just for ourselves, but for all those who live here.
Thank you. Mr. Amaro?
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you for having me. My first time running. It's not easy. You have to do a lot of work. The reason I'm running is because we know a lot of families in Middletown, a lot of families. My wife and I were very involved in the community. We're talking to a lot of people, and a lot of people are struggling. That's a fact. There's insane inflation right now. Costs are going up, and I think what we do locally can actually help people. One thing that we didn't talk about tonight is at all is small business. Small business is the backbone of our community. I think they've been ignored a lot. I think we're talking about these big businesses, big issues, big developments, but we're ignoring the small businesses, and they are the backbone. A lot of our locals own these small businesses. They employ a lot of people, and I think we need to start, shifting the lens and maybe supporting them a little bit more. I come from a family of entrepreneurs and small business owners. It is very hard to run a business. It's harder now than ever with inflation, the cost of labor. I think we need to start focusing on that as well as these other issues, tax reform, education, our environment, and housing as well. So I would love everyone's support. I think Middletown does need a little bit of change on the council, and I would be honored to serve the residents of Middletown. You can
Thank you.
learn more about me at leonamarant.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frank?
Housing, housing, housing. Housing is integral to every part of this community. It affects education, taxes, quality of life, our sense of community. There's no question that with the right approach, a cooperative approach of all of us, that we can begin to solve these problems, and we will. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Logan?
A community is not a place. It's not a building. It's not an organization. A community is a set of relationships among people who come together to meet common needs. Middletown is a community. We need to make sure we continue to meet our residents' needs. Our community needs focus in a lot of areas, primarily in the few here. Economic vitality. We need to focus on finding greater efficiencies and driving new revenue to grow the town in sustainable and responsible ways. Continue transparency. Truly foster and build trust and openness, ensuring every resident's voice can be heard. Our education system. We must support our new superintendent. Make sure that our schools are delivered as promised to create opportunities where our children can thrive. And then finally, housing. Deliver on the goals and the current projects to create affordable housing for our seniors and our family, critical for our continued success. Members of a community have a sense of trust, belonging, and caring for each other. They have both an individual and collective awareness that they can, as part of this community, influence their environments and each other. I'm asking for your continued support to be the leader that Middletown needs, a servant leader that listens and responds to the community.
Thank you. Mr. Connerton?
Not sure how I'm going to follow that, Chris. That was beautiful. And even more important, it's sincere, and I know it. I want to thank the Chamber, the League of Women Voters, Knights of Columbus for providing the facility. I want to thank the current town councilors I work with. I've learned a lot from you, and I'm hoping that I'll be reelected again. I've tried my best. I've worked hard on issues. One of the big things I said, or the basic things I said when I ran the first time, is I wanted to leave Middletown a little better than I found it. I think I'm working on that. I'm getting there. And one of the biggest things for me in being a town councilor is recognizing and seeing all the volunteers in the community. It's truly special to see all the people that worked to try to make this a better community. I hope you support me going forward. I want to continue to be part of that. And like I said, I hope you support me. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. That concludes our program this evening. I want to thank all of the candidates for taking time to join us today and just share your perspectives on these various different views. I hope the residents of Middletown that this was informative for you. Hope we covered most of the questions on the important issues that are impactful to you. If not, there's plenty of time to reach out to these individual candidates, find out some more, check out their websites, mingle. I'm sure they would all be happy to answer your questions. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. Yeah. You got my vote. Although I don't vote in this district. It's tough. It sounded good.